Alright everyone, it's time to talk about climate change, which is not actually an existential threat to mankind. I fully believe that it's, number one, reversible, number two, largely natural. I'm not going to sit here and worry about it. I find it funny that supposedly right-wing groups, after years of saying climate change isn't real, now there's like a Republican Party climate caucus and things. It's interesting how the Overton window is shifting despite no actual additional evidence within science. I wonder how long it'll be before these big tech sites decide to ban people for questioning that scientific consensus, as they do currently for medicine, again for supposedly pragmatic and existential reasons, but really it's just propaganda. Here's the thing. The powers that be in the Western world are offering you snake oil NIMBYism as the solution for climate change. If they actually believed the science, which supposedly the consensus is that within the next 50 to 100 years we'll have reduced our planet to uninhabitability, weather cycles will completely get out of hand, our planet will be a combination of huge deserts and wind-scored, hurricane-addled peninsular areas that are incapable of sustaining human life because of constant Cat 3 activity. That's supposedly our future, in not that many generations. No human would survive. There wouldn't be any place on Earth for them to be, because everything would collapse because of mankind's industry. Now, first and foremost, I don't believe that for a second. We can look back at the fairly recent history. We can find warm periods, regional and worldwide. We can find cold periods. We can find the Little Ice Age and things like that. Now, sometimes these are regional or even localized, but they can be long-term, they can be extremely destabilizing. That's what I believe we're also seeing today. But keep in mind what the supposed scientific consensus is with regards to climate change, and I say supposed because there isn't actually a consensus. Here's the problem. The main posited feature is that climate change, again, if you believe in it, began around the Industrial Revolution. They look at fairly recent warming trends over the last 200 years, correlate that with emissions readings, which, again, the methodology there doesn't exactly provide for hefty enough controls in my mind all the time, but let's just go with it. CO2 begins to rise, therefore more global warming, with climate change of various kinds. The problem is that if you look back to the mid-late 1800s, there weren't that many places in the world that were industrialized, and they were serving a population of about a tenth of what the world has today. The only way to, therefore, even go back to the very slow beginnings of climate change, if it is indeed largely man-made and it is real and it is a threat that we would want to reverse, is to reduce the world's population by an order of magnitude, either through genocide or sterilization attempts, and to deindustrialize. The world would have to go back to wooden plows and things. Is this possible? Yeah, technically. Yeah, you could release a virus or something and it would kill off 90% of people or render them sterile and fertile if you wanted to. Would it be capable of being done without destabilizing the world and defeating the purpose? No, I don't see any method by which that could happen. Would it be able to be done and then everyone would stay deindustrialized forever despite the fact that the means of reestablishing industry would be fairly simplistic? No. The first nation to reindustrialize would win all. They would become the new masters. And if you think that the industrial nations of the world, have any of them, the US, China, Russia et al., have any of these nations that are so concerned about climate change considered the possibility of de-escalating the military complex that gobbles up so much energy usage? No. No, they all want to grow their militaries. Every nation right now wants to grow its military. That's interesting because all these world leaders claim that CO2 emissions are going to kill us all. So yeah, we're going to defend you from being killed by killing everyone. See, the problem is what they're offering is bullshit. They know that climate change is either irreversible and we're doomed, or it's reversible by nature and hey, we don't know what's going to happen. Who cares? Let's do nothing. And meanwhile, they're selling you carbon credits, carbon taxes, and NIMBYism. NIMBYism's this. Not to say everyone talks about, hey, so many factories in the United States have been lost over the last few decades as the result of overtaxation, environmental regulationism, and so forth. No, they haven't. Those factories just moved. They're still there. It's just that they took them down in the United States. So see, here's the NIMBYism. You, the American, don't see the smokestack, but little Chinese kids do. People in Chennai in India do. People in Taipei do. People all over Asia and parts of Africa and Latin America, the industry just went there. It didn't, your Western European nation that now has 10 times less pollution than it did a few decades ago, huzzah, we won. No, you just made more pollution for Polish people. You didn't make the pollution go away. The emissions are still there. It's the law of supply and demand. If anything, people are more materialistic now than they were 20 or 30 years ago. We used to say in the 90s, recycle, reuse, reduce. Everyone wanted to go to the recycling center, but nobody wanted to wash and reuse their bottles. Nobody wanted to reduce their materialistic intake. It's NIMBYism. And essentially, it's a power grab. The politicians, the globalistic types, they want to use climate change as another boogeyman to pass more laws. That means more taxes that they grift off of, more bureaus to make more favors to them, trading favors. It means more anti-competitive monopolism in the United States especially, I would say, and Canada, which allows larger businesses to harm their smaller competitors. Because, again, who can bear the financial burden of a government bureau coming in and harassing you over environmental regulations? The little chain store in your hometown with 3 outlets and 20 employees, or Walmart? Which one can survive that? Of course Walmart can. They don't care. Kroger can survive that. Aldi's can survive that. These companies, they don't have any problem. Fucking Target can survive these sorts of things. The little regional and local chains, they can't. They can't keep up with all the regulations. And, by the way, pretty much every small business in the country would go out of business tomorrow if they actually breathed down the neck of anyone that actually skirted environmental law alone. Because the law is so complex. You think that the ma and pa bookstore really knows all the regulations they have to follow? No, they just set up shop and then they start selling things and hopefully don't run afoul of tax laws. They're all lawbreakers in the eyes of government. Government's steadily destroying more small businesses now anyway. That's where the innovation happens. Small and local chains mainly. Small business, local chain, regional conglomerate, something 10 stores or something like that. That's where the innovation happens. There's a reason why the U.S. economic model, and indeed the model in much of the Western world, is lopsided. And climate change really helps that to happen. Because you have all of these taxes that you're proposing. It's not going to affect Kroger. It's not going to affect Walmart. It's not going to affect Amazon, Microsoft. They can either operate at a loss, allowing their competitors to die off, then they jack their prices up, and of course they can reabsorb that almost instantaneously, or they can use their armies of lawyers to just perpetually skirt environmental regulations while smaller competitors are destroyed. Why do you think Bill Gates is now the largest single holder of farmland in the United States? It's not to innovate and grow better crops. It's not because he's actually interested in making more profit. Hey, you know what? There's a lot of profit to be made in soybeans. It's not about that. It's horseshit. And you should know better. There are people, they'll look at this sort of thing and they actually believe what they're being told. You believe the government. It's going to be, it's benevolent. It's trying to save you from climate change. Meanwhile, all of these people, they have private jets and 3rd and 4th homes. Have you seen Michael Moore's home? Does that look like a person who's really concerned about climate change? What about the Obamas with their Martha Vineyard estate? They're like fucking 10 bedrooms. It's like 5 feet above sea level. Supposedly it should be under the waves already. Well, why did they build it there? They at least raise it up on stilts or something. You should have a stilt house because supposedly that entire shoreline won't exist in a couple of decades. But the evidence is mounting that the entire charade is false. Yeah, at this point I guess you have to classify me as a climate denier or whatever moniker they're using for that because, again, you can physically observe shorelines. You can visibly look at ice melt and things like this and snowfall and temperatures and CO2 emissions and probably monitor it yourself if you wanted to invest in the right equipment. Doomsday hasn't come yet. Supposedly we hit the point of no return a couple times already now. CO2 levels in deep ocean, I think that was 2013 or something. The scientists said, oh, well, we've hit the inversion point. Basically, we're doomed. The oceans are going to suck up all of the oxygen and then we're all going to die. Well, we're still here. Large parts of the earth are still reforesting, actually, at the moment. Very, very interesting. That's about all. Peace out.